The night was cold and quiet. Dark clouds covered the stars, and the wind made the trees whisper. Daniel sat alone in his small wooden cabin, deep inside the forest. He had no family nearby, no friends who visited. Just him and the silence, sometimes. He liked it that way, but tonight he felt a little lonely. He was making tea when he heard a strange cry from outside. It wasn't the sound of an animal he knew. It wasn't a wolf or a fox, or even a bird. It sounded like pain, but also like someone calling for help. Daniel froze for a moment, listening again. The sound came again, soft, broken, and full of fear. He quickly grabbed his flashlight and jacket. Whatever it was out there in the dark. Daniel opened the door and stepped into the cold night. The rain had stopped, but the ground was wet and muddy. He followed the sound. Walking deeper into the forest, his flashlight cut through the dark trees, lighting small paths between bushes and rocks. Then he saw something, a shape lying on the ground, shivering. Glowing faintly in the dark, Daniel came closer, slowly, carefully. It looked like a small animal, maybe the size of a dog, but it didn't look like any dog he had seen. Its fur was silver blue, soft and strange, and its eyes were bright like stars. One of its legs was bleeding, and its breathing was weak. Daniel knelt beside it, holding out his hand. "It's okay," he whispered. "I won't hurt you." The animal looked at him, eyes full of pain and something else, intelligence, maybe. Even trust. Daniel wrapped it in his jacket and picked it up gently. It was warm but shaking, as if it was scared of something or someone. He carried it back to his cabin, heart beating fast. Whatever this was, it was no normal creature inside the cabin. He placed the animal on a blanket near the fire. He cleaned the wound with water and tied a cloth around the leg. The animal didn't fight him, just stared with those glowing eyes, silent and still. Daniel gave it some water, and it drank slowly. Then it closed its eyes and rested, breathing. Slow and soft, Daniel sat nearby, watching it carefully. He should have been afraid, but he wasn't. Something about the creature made him feel calm. Almost safe. Hours passed, and the wind outside grew louder. The storm returned, shaking the windows and roof. But inside, it was quiet, except for the sound of the fire and the creature's breath. Daniel felt sleepy, his eyes heavy from the long day. He lay on the couch, still facing the animal, and slowly drifted into sleep. The fire crackled, throwing shadows on the walls. The wind howled, but Daniel didn't hear it anymore. He was deep in dreams, far from the storm. And while he slept, something happened. The creature opened its eyes, wide and glowing. It looked at Daniel for a long time, silent and still. Then its body began to change. The silver fur melted away like water. The shape began to stretch and shift. Legs turned to arms, paws became fingers. The head reshaped into something human. In just a few seconds, the animal was gone. In its place lay a girl, pale skin, glowing hair, and soft silver eyes. She looked like something from another world. She sat up slowly, holding her wounded leg. She didn't make a sound, just watched Daniel as he slept. She looked at his face, calm and peaceful, and then whispered something in a soft, broken voice. "You helped me." A single tear rolled down her cheek, glowing faintly. She lay back down on the blanket, covering herself with the jacket Daniel gave. Her breathing slowed, and she closed her eyes again. The storm outside grew louder, but inside, too. Strangers, one human, one not, slept under the same roof. One had given mercy, the other was no animal. She was something far more mysterious, and very soon that mystery would change everything. Forever. Daniel dreamed of stars. He didn't know why, but in his sleep, he saw a sky he had never seen before. Purple clouds moved slowly over twin moons, and strange shapes floated through the air like birds made of glass. He was walking in a field of glowing grass, and someone was calling his name. Softly, gently. Daniel, he opened his eyes, slowly, confused. His cabin was quiet. The storm outside had faded into a soft drizzle. The fire had burned low, casting only faint orange light across the wooden floor. Daniel sat up, rubbing his eyes, still caught between the dream and reality. Then he heard it again, not the cry from last night, but a voice. Daniel, he turned quickly, looking toward the blanket near the fire. But the creature was gone. In its place sat a girl. She looked about 20 years old, but something about her seemed timeless. Her skin was smooth and pale, glowing faintly like moonlight. Her hair was long, silver, and shimmered even in the dim light. Her eyes, those eyes were the same as the creature's, bright, deep, and sad. She looked at him with both fear and hope, holding his jacket tightly around her body. Daniel stood up slowly, unsure if he was awake or still dreaming. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. The girl opened her mouth to speak, but her words were slow, broken, like someone learning how to talk again. "Not from here," she said, her voice soft and musical. Daniel stared, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. You were the animal," he said. "You changed." She nodded slowly. "I hide." "Survive." Daniel stepped closer, carefully, still unsure if she was dangerous. But her eyes showed no threat, only exhaustion. "Are you alien?" he asked, almost whispering the word. She looked down as if the word hurt, then nodded again. "Yes." Daniel sat down on the floor, overwhelmed. This wasn't a dream. He had saved something not just from the forest, but from the stars. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice gentler now. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Ira." Daniel repeated it. Ira. It felt strange on his tongue, like a name from another language, another world. She looked at him again. Serious now. "They come." Daniel frowned. "Who?" Ira struggled with her words. "Hunters, not like me. They follow. They take." Daniel felt a chill run through his body. "Are they looking for you?" he asked. She nodded. "I ran. They want me gone." "Forever?" Suddenly, a soft beep echoed in the room. Ira's head turned quickly. Her eyes alert, she stood slowly, limping slightly, and moved toward the window. Daniel followed, confused. Outside, in the dark forest sky, a small red light blinked in the distance. It was floating, moving silently between the trees. Then another appeared, and another, small machine drones flying low, scanning the area. With blue lights, Daniel's breath caught in his throat. "Are those them?" he asked. Ira's voice was quiet, but clear now. "Yes." She turned to him. "You helped me. You in danger now." Daniel stepped back, heart racing. "What do we do?" Ira limped to the fireplace, reached behind the wood rack, and pulled out a small black box. It looked like metal, but shimmered with colors Daniel had never seen before. She pressed it to her chest, and it lit up, showing symbols in the air, floating. Lights spinning softly. Daniel stared, amazed. "What is that?" "Life code," she said. "My memory. My power. My escape." He didn't understand it all, but he knew one thing: he had stepped into something far bigger than he could imagine, and now he couldn't step out. Ira looked at him again, her silver eyes full of pain and trust. "You still help?" Daniel looked at the drones outside, searching, hunting. Then he looked at her, this strange, glowing girl from another world. He didn't have to think long. "Yes," he said. "I'll help." Outside, the red lights moved closer, blinking slowly, like eyes. Inside, the fire flickered, and two unlikely allies began a new chapter in their story. not just of survival, but of something deeper. Something that neither of them fully understood yet, but it had already begun, and there was no turning back. The forest was no longer silent. It was breathing slow and heavy, as if something alive was moving through the trees. Daniel stood at the cabin window, watching the strange red lights float between branches like ghostly eyes. Each light blinked. In perfect rhythm, slow and searching, they didn't make any sound. But the way they moved made his skin crawl. Next to him, Ira sat on the floor, her body glowing faintly in the darkness. She held the black device tightly to her chest, her breath slow and steady. She looked calm. But Daniel knew better now. He had seen fear in her eyes, not human fear, but something deeper, like someone who had been running for a very long time. Why? Are they hunting you? Daniel whispered, keeping his eyes on the sky. Ira didn't answer right away. Her voice came slowly, as if the words hurt. My kind. We are called Lorraine. We were peaceful shapeshifters. Watchers of stars. We never harmed anyone. She looked down, her fingers tracing glowing symbols in the air. But the Varn. They wanted more. More planets, more power. Daniel turned to her. The Varn? The ones sending these drones. Ira nodded. They destroy, conquer, take what they want. Her eyes met his, glowing softly like distant stars. I escaped, but they do not forget. Daniel felt the weight of her words settle in his chest. He looked out the window again. They found you? No, she said. They found you because you helped me. Daniel backed away from the window and grabbed a bag from the corner of the cabin. He started packing food, water, and a flashlight. We can't stay here, he said. They'll come, and this place won't protect us. Ira stood up slowly, wincing from her healing leg. She opened her hand and a small floating sphere appeared, glowing blue. What is that? Daniel asked, watching it hover in the air. Signal scrambler, she replied. It will hide us. For a short time, she released the sphere, and it floated to the ceiling, pulsing with soft waves outside. The red lights paused for a moment, blinking faster, then turned and moved away. Daniel exhaled, but only slightly. That won't work forever, he said. Ira nodded. No, but we have time to reach something important. She walked to the table and pressed a finger against the black device. A hologram appeared, lines, shapes, coordinates. Daniel stared at it like a map drawn by stars. What is this? My escape, she said, but it's broken, and it needs a new source. Daniel looked closer at the projection and recognized something. A mine, old and abandoned, just outside the forest. I know this place, he said, surprised. But why there? There is crystal, Ira replied, not from Earth, but found here, long ago, hidden underground. Daniel grabbed a jacket and flashlight again. Then we go now. Ira shook her head. You go. Daniel stopped, alone. If I move too far, they find me, she said. You. They do not know your shape. Yet, he hesitated, then nodded before leaving. He looked at her, locked the door behind me. Ira reached out, and with a wave of her hand, strange blue symbols lit up on the wood. Now it is locked, she said, with a faint smile. Daniel stepped into the forest again, this time with a new fear, not fear of the dark, but fear of what was above it. Watching, waiting, he moved quickly, staying low. Stepping over roots and ducking under branches, he didn't use the flashlights, too risky. The path to the mine was narrow and overgrown. But he remembered the way. It had been years since anyone visited it. And now, something alien was hidden there, waiting for him. When Daniel reached the old gate, rusted and broken, he slipped inside and entered the dark tunnel. The air was cold and heavy, the smell of dust and old stone filling his nose. He turned on the flashlight carefully, pointing it down so the beam wouldn't be seen outside. The walls of the mine shimmered faintly. Then he saw a glowing crack in the stone. Pulsing with light, the crystal, he moved toward it. Reaching into his bag for the tools he packed, as he chipped away at the stone, the light grew brighter. Then, he heard a sound behind him. Not footsteps, not breathing. A hum, low and metallic. He turned around slowly. A red drone hovered at the mine entrance, its light fixed on him. It scanned his face and spoke in a language Daniel didn't understand. He dropped the tool and ran deeper into the tunnel. The drone followed, fast and silent. Then, just as it reached him, something struck it from the side hard. The drone spun and crashed into the wall. Sparks flying, Daniel looked up, breathing hard. Ira stood in the shadows. Glowing and fierce. "I told you," she said. Helping him up, they don't forget. They grabbed the crystal together, and she placed it inside the black device. It pulsed with life, light spreading like veins. "Now," she said, "we run," and they did. Together, hunted from the stars. The device came alive in her hands. Ira held it close as it glowed brighter with every heartbeat. Lines of light danced across its surface, whispering in a language Daniel couldn't read. It felt like standing near a living machine enchant. Intelligent and watching, they were hidden behind thick trees now, far from the mine, the night darker than before. The drone that chased them had burned in silence, but Daniel knew more would come. "Is it working?" he asked, breathless. Ira didn't answer right away. Her eyes were fixed on the glowing core of the device, her lips moving softly as if praying. Then she looked up. "Yes, but not for long. It needs more time." Daniel sat on a rock, exhausted, wiping sweat and dirt from his face. His body ached, his hands were cut. But inside him, something had changed. He was no longer just a man in the forest. He was part of something larger. "Where did it come from?" he asked, nodding toward the device. Ira looked down at it with a strange sadness. "This is from before war, when we traveled freely. When stars were open to all." She gently placed the device on the ground, and it unfolded like petals of a flower. Light bloomed outward, forming a circle in the air, holograms of strange places. Tall towers, silver oceans, sky cities with bridges made of light. Daniel stared in wonder. "This is your home." "Was," she whispered. "It is gone now, burned by the Varn." The images shifted again, this time showing black ships raining fire on the silver towers. Daniel's fists tightened. Why would they do this? "Because we refused to build weapons," she replied, "and that made us weak in their eyes." The silence between them was heavy, filled with memories that didn't belong to the same world. Then the device blinked red, and the images vanished. "What happened?" Daniel asked, standing up. "It needs a shield crystal to power full escape mode," she said. "That was not in the mine." Daniel frowned. "Where do we find one?" She hesitated, then pointed west. "There is one place, but not safe." He looked where she pointed, recognizing the direction. "Military base," he said quietly. "They've had weird tech locked up there for years." Ira nodded. "My kind sent signals long ago. One seed landed near this place. Humans found it before we could." Daniel stared at the forest ahead, the idea already forming in his mind. Then, "I'll get it," he said. Ira stepped forward, grabbing his wrist. "Too dangerous." He looked at her firmly. "You crossed galaxies, lost your world, fought your way here, and you're still standing. Now it's my turn to try." She looked into his eyes, and for the first time, she didn't see fear. She saw fire, a human sparks, small but fierce. Ira opened the device again and removed a small object, like a silver coin with blinking light. "Wear this, it hides your face from Varn drones." For a short time, Daniel took it, nodded once, and turned toward the path. But before he walked away, he looked back. "If I don't return, Ira gave a soft smile. You will. The next hour was quiet. Daniel moved like a shadow through the forest, thoughts racing faster than his feet. His whole life he had lived simply, quietly. Now he was breaking into a secret military site. For an alien girl, it sounded insane, but it also felt right. He reached the fence stall, old, and humming with electricity. He found a weak spot near the corner, cut it, and slipped through. The base was silent, lit by motion sensors and tall towers. He stayed low, followed the edge of a warehouse, and slipped through a side door. Inside, it was cold, filled with crates and machines covered by tarps. He didn't have a map, but something pulled him deeper. And then he saw it, a crystal floating in a glass container, surrounded by scanners and blinking lights. It was just like Ira described, clear, with threads of blue lightning inside. He moved closer, reached out, then stopped. Footsteps, a guard, walking slowly, flashlight in hand. Daniel hid behind a crate, breath held, heart pounding. The guard paused, looked around, then walked on. Daniel waited 5 more seconds, then moved. He broke the case open, grabbed the crystal, and ran. Alarms screamed. Lights turned red, doors locked. But Daniel was already outside, sprinting toward the trees. A drone flew overhead. But the silver coin on his chest blinked and it passed by. Blind to him, minutes later, he crashed through the brush into the clearing where Ira waited. She looked up, shocked. You did it? He handed her the crystal, smiling through blood and sweat. I told you, he said. My turn. Ira placed the crystal into the device, and it shone like a newborn star in the forest. Light cut through darkness once more, not to blind, but to lead the way forward. The blast came without warning. 1 second Daniel was standing in the clearing, handing the crystal to Ira, and the next, everything turned white. A flash of light, a sharp crack through the air. And Daniel was on the ground, ears ringing, vision spinning. Voices shouted in the distance, sharp and cold, then boots, guns, helmets, figures surrounding them. Ira tried to protect the device, but it was too late. One of the soldiers grabbed it from her hand. Another pinned Daniel down. He struggled, yelling, "Don't hurt her," but a rifle slammed into the side of his head. And the world went dark when Daniel woke. The world was metal. Cold walls, buzzing lights, and a chain around his wrist. He was inside a holding cell, underground, deep inside the military base he had just escaped from. His mouth was dry, his head hurt, but he forced himself to sit up. Ira, he whispered, but no one answered. A camera blinked at him from the corner of the ceiling. Then the door opened. A man in a dark uniform entered, eyes sharp, movements strict. Daniel Reeves, he said without emotion. You made contact with an unidentified life form, stole from a government facility, and trespassed into a secured zone. Daniel didn't flinch. Where is she? The man raised an eyebrow. She? Daniel stood, pulling the chain. The one I rescued, the one you took. The officer stared at him for a long moment, then said, You don't know what you're dealing with. She's not dangerous. Daniel growled. She's running. For her life, she's alien, the man said coldly. And that makes her property. Daniel's fists clenched, far above, in a sealed white lab. Ira lay on a metal table, surrounded by machines. Her skin was pale, her breath shallow. The device had been taken from her, but the energy still flowed inside her veins. Her mind reached out not in words, but in memory. She saw Daniel's face in the dark, the warmth of his cabin. The moment he said, I'll help, and something inside her changed. A pulse of power ran through her body. Her eyes opened, glowing silver. The scientist stepped back in. Fear, instruments sparking and failing. The metal cuffs around her wrists melted into steam. In a second, she was standing no longer in her human disguise. Her real form shimmered like starlight. Her skin glowed with soft light. Her hair floated as if underwater. Her shape tall, graceful, and radiant. They had captured her thinking she was weak. They were wrong. Ira raised her hand, and the room bent around her, machines turning off. Lights, flickering gravity pulsing in waves. She moved through the door without touching at metal, slid aside like it was afraid of her. Alarms blared. But she was already walking calmly down the hall. Back in his cell, Daniel heard the sirens start. Red? Lights flashed. Voices shouted orders, but he just smiled. "She's awake," he whispered. The door to his cell exploded outward. And standing there in her true form was Ira. Daniel stared, eyes wide, breath caught. He had seen alien beauty in dreams, but this was something more. She wasn't just strange, she was magnificent. Her presence made the air feel alive. He stepped forward slowly. "It's really you." Ira looked into his eyes, and her voice, now clear and strong, said, "I remember your kindness," with a wave of her hand. The chain around his wrist turned to dust. "We leave," she said. They ran together through the halls, guards shouting behind them, but none could stop her. Doors opened for her, lights bent around her. Even the air moved with her will. They reached the upper level just a few more steps. To freedom, but at the exit stood the same officer who questioned Daniel. He held the device in one hand and a gun in the other. "Stop right there," he shouted. "Don't take another step." Daniel stepped in front of Ira. "Arms out. Don't do this. You don't understand." The officer raised the gun. His hand shaking, Ira stepped forward, placing her hand gently on Daniel's shoulder. "Let me," she said. She looked at the officer not with anger, but with deep sadness. "You fear what you do not know," she said softly, "but I will not return pain with pain." She closed her eyes, and the device lifted from the officer's hand, floating back to her. The gun turned cold, then fell apart in pieces. The officer dropped to his knees. Overwhelmed, Daniel took Ira's hand, and together they walked out into the night. The sky above was dark, but full of stars. Ira looked up and whispered something in her own language. A promise to the stars she had lost, and beside her, Daniel knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something far greater than either of them could imagine. The forest was quiet again. Too quiet, Daniel and Ira stood beneath the trees, their breath misting in the cold night air. The stars above were bright and sharp, like thousands of tiny eyes watching from the dark. But Daniel wasn't looking up. He was looking at her, not the creature he once found near death, not the girl with silver eyes, but the alien light standing tall beside him, the last of her kind. And the friend who now had to leave. The device floated between them, fully repaired, glowing softly like a heart made of stars. A circular gate of light had opened in the air, pulsing with waves that shimmered like water. It was her way out, her only way home, even if there was no home left to return to. "You can go now," Daniel said quietly. "You're safe." Ira looked at the portal, then at him. "You made me safe," she replied, "not the machine." Daniel smiled a little. "That's what humans do, I guess." He tried to sound calm, but his chest felt tight, because part of him wanted to ask her to stay, and part of him knew she couldn't. Ira stepped closer, her eyes soft. "You gave more than kindness, you gave hope." Daniel looked away, staring at the trees. "I'm just a man in the woods, Ira. I don't even know what happens next." "Neither do I," she said, "but I know we are changed." The device beeped a warning. The portal was beginning to shrink. She had minutes left, maybe less. Daniel stepped back, giving her space. "You should go." But Ira didn't move. Instead, She reached into the device and pulled out a small crystal. It glowed softly, like a frozen flame. She placed it in his hand, curling his fingers around it. "This holds memory," she said. "If you ever forget, it will remember for you." Daniel stared at it, then at her. "Will I ever see you again?" Ira tilted her head. Time moves differently. Space even more. But feelings move through everything. He tried to laugh, but it came. "Outbroken, this wasn't supposed to matter so much," he said, voice cracking. "It was just one night." "One night can change worlds," she replied. The portal dimmed slightly, buzzing now, unstable. Daniel felt a wave of emotion rise in his chest. Fear, sadness, something like love, but older and stranger. He wanted to say more, but the words wouldn't come. Ira reached up, gently touched his cheek with her glowing hand. "I will carry your voice in the stars," she whispered, and then she turned. She stepped into the portal, her body glowing brighter with each step. Daniel watched as the light wrapped around her. Folding space like a curtain, he saw her silhouette fade, her silver hair drift, and then silence. The portal collapsed into a spark, then vanished completely. The forest returned to stillness. Daniel stood alone beneath the sky, the crystal still in his hand, warm like a heartbeat. Days passed, then weeks. No soldiers came, no drones returned. The world forgot what happened. But Daniel did not. He returned to his cabin, repaired the broken door, made tea every evening, and stared at the stars. Each night he held the crystal, sometimes hearing echoes of her voice, sometimes just silence. But one evening, something changed. He was walking near the stream behind his cabin when he heard it again. A cry, not a scream, not a shout, a soft, familiar cry, like the one that started everything. Daniel froze, heart racing. He turned toward the trees, toward the sound. It was quiet now, but he knew it wasn't the wind. He knew that sound, and he smiled. The stars had changed. Daniel didn't know how, but they looked different now, sharper, closer. As if the sky itself remembered her, he sat outside his cabin, the night quiet, the crystal warm in his hand. It had been many weeks since she left, but time no longer moved the way it used to. He wasn't just Daniel from the forest anymore. He was Daniel, the one who helped a girl who wasn't human, the one who saw what most people never would. He had been part of something greater. And though she was gone, he didn't feel alone, not truly. Sometimes the crystal whispered words he couldn't quite understand, echoes of her voice, or maybe just memories stored inside light. Sometimes it stayed silent, as if sleeping. But tonight was different. He had just stepped inside when it glowed brighter than ever. Not warm, but hot alive, it floated from his hand into the air, spinning gently. Then it projected a beam of light onto the wall, clear and beautiful. Ira's face appeared in the center. She wasn't smiling, but her eyes were full of something. "Deeper peace, Daniel," her voice said, calm and soft. "If you're hearing this, then the gift worked. You gave me something I thought I had lost, mercy." The image shifted, showing the stars she had spoken of. Her world, broken but healing. Others like her walking among strange trees, rebuilding, singing. "You helped more than one life," she said. "You gave my people a second chance." Daniel watched in silence, heart full, throat tight. "You may never see me again," the message continued. "But if this light ever returns, it means we are still watching, still grateful." The projection faded. The crystal fell gently back into his hand. It was cool again, but Daniel could still feel its pulse. He stepped outside, looked up at the sky, and said nothing. He didn't have to. Days later, something strange happened. A small girl, no more than 6 years old, was found near the edge of town. No one knew where she came from. She didn't speak. but she had silver eyes and a strange mark on her wrist. Daniel saw the news by accident, on a television in a gas station. His heart stopped. He knew. He didn't understand how, but he knew. That cry he heard weeks ago in the forest, wasn't just memory. It was a call, a signal, or maybe a promise returned. He packed a bag, grabbed the crystal, and left the cabin behind. The wind was cold, but his heart was steady. He didn't know where the road would take him, but he knew something bigger had begun, and that his story, their story, was not truly over. Because mercy had a way of leaving echoes, and some echoes, no matter how quiet, always find their way back. Even across stars, even across lifetimes.